The storm outside raged with an intensity that mirrored the tumult within my heart. As I sat in my dimly lit living room, the flickering light from a solitary lamp cast long shadows against the walls. I absent-mindedly flipped through old family photographs, each one a haunting reminder of the past. My fingers traced the edges of the pictures, feeling the weight of nostalgia and loss. There was a time when laughter filled these rooms, a time when Ethan, my brother, was still here. "Lucy, come on, let's go play outside." I could almost hear his voice, bright and carefree, echoing through the years. But that was 10 years ago, before he disappeared without a trace. I let out a shaky breath, my mind swirling with the memories of that fateful day. The police, the searching eyes, the endless questions. The thunder crashed violently, as if the heavens were mourning alongside me. I paused on a photograph of Ethan, his smile infectious, eyes sparkling with mischief, and my heart ached anew. "Where are you, Ethan?" I whispered into the silence, hoping somehow he could hear me. The storm intensified, wind howling like a restless spirit outside my window. My chest tightened with a mix of anxiety and determination. I couldn't let go. I needed to find him, to understand what had happened. Just then, a bolt of lightning illuminated the room, and for the briefest moment, I thought I saw a figure in the window. My heart raced. It couldn't be. But there, in that flash of brilliance, I saw a face that looked so much like Ethan's. "Ethan!" I gasped, my voice trembling. I sprang from my seat, racing towards the window, my heart pounding in my ears like a drum. I flung the curtain aside, but the rain lashed against the glass, obscuring any trace of the vision I had just seen. "No, no, no!" I cried out, pressing my forehead against the cold, wet glass. "This can't be happening." Confusion washed over me, blending with the fear that had settled in my bones. Was it just my imagination? I mumbled, stepping back and shaking my head. But deep down I felt a spark of hope igniting within me. If Ethan was out there, if he was trying to reach me, I had to follow the thread of this strange connection. I needed answers, and the local library was my first stop. I grabbed my coat, the fabric brushing against my skin like a reminder of the urgency I felt. As I stepped into the stormy night, the rain soaked through quickly. But I didn't care. I had to find the truth. The library was a sanctuary amidst the chaos, its quietness a stark contrast to the storm raging outside. I moved through the rows of books, the scent of aged paper and leather filling my senses. I made my way to the section on local history, my fingers dancing along the spines of books until I found one that caught my eye. It was a dusty tome, its title faded. Legends of New Orleans, the dark history of our ancestors. As I flipped through its pages, I stumbled upon a series of unsolved cases, each one more chilling than the last. My breath caught in my throat when I saw my family name mentioned, tied to a history of disappearances and dark occurrences. "What is this?" I whispered, my mind racing. Then, a particular passage caught my eye, detailing a pact made by my ancestors with a dark entity in exchange for protection. A shiver ran down my spine, the words dancing in front of me, as if whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. The storm outside intensified, and I could almost hear the echoes of my family's past calling me forward. "Ethan," I murmured, determination setting in. I needed to uncover the truth, no matter how deep or dark it might be. As I continued to read, the storm's roar faded into the background, replaced by a singular focus. I would find my brother. The rain pounded against the windows as I stepped into the small, cluttered office of Marissa, the historian and family friend. The dim light from the desk lamp cast shadows across the room, creating an almost eerie atmosphere that matched the storm raging outside. I had known Marissa my whole life. She was a constant in my childhood memories, a warm smile amid the chaos of family secrets. But today, her familiar face felt heavy with unspoken truths. "Lucy!" she exclaimed, her voice breaking slightly as she looked up from the papers strewn across her desk. "It's been a while. You look troubled." "Marissa," I started, my heart pounding with urgency. "I need your help. I've found something about Ethan and our family. It's more than I ever expected." She motioned for me to sit down, her brow furrowed with concern. "What have you found?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I discovered a historical account of a pact made by our ancestors. They made a deal to protect the family from a curse, but the price, it's steep. I paused, remembering the chilling details I had uncovered. Ethan's disappearance? It's all connected, isn't it? Marissa's expression darkened as she leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. Those who seek the truth often meet dire consequences, Lucy. You must be careful. The past can be a treacherous place. You don't understand, I insisted, desperation creeping into my voice. I can't let this go. I need to know what happened to Ethan. If this pact has put him in danger all these years, I have to find a way to break it. She sighed heavily, her gaze drifting to the window where the rain blurred the outside world. The pact was made to protect us, yes, but it came with a cost. Some family members paid dearly for it. Ghostly apparitions, strange occurrences. Those who tried to escape the pact were often lost to it. My heart raced. Do you have any records? Anything that can help me understand what we're dealing with? Marissa stood up, walking over to a large, dusty bookshelf that loomed against the wall. She pulled out a heavy tome, its spine cracked and worn. This contains everything I know about your family's history. But be warned, Lucy. What you find may not be what you wish to see. I took the book from her, feeling the weight of generations pressing down on me. As I flipped through the pages, my eyes fell upon a troubling entry. It says here that the pact requires a sacrifice every generation. Is that true? Marissa nodded solemnly. Yes, it's a cycle that has repeated itself for centuries. Those who made the pact believed they were saving their loved ones, but in truth, they were binding them to a dark fate. I felt a chill run down my spine. And if we break the pact? Then everything that was promised will unravel, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. But be prepared. It may not come without a fight. I'll do whatever it takes, I replied, clutching the book tightly. I can't live with the uncertainty any longer. I need to know what happened to my brother. As I left Marissa's office, the storm had intensified, thunder rumbling ominously in the distance. I felt a mixture of fear and determination surging within me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was drawing closer to a truth that had been buried for far too long. Back at home, I opened the old tome and immersed myself in the stories of my ancestors. Tales of bravery and betrayal, of love and loss. The darkness that surrounded my family began to take shape, and I could almost hear the whispers of those who had come before me. They were warning me, urging me to be cautious, but my heart was set. I wouldn't stop until I found Ethan, no matter the cost. That night, I barely slept. As the wind howled and the rain lashed against the roof, I felt an inexplicable pull towards the past, as if it were calling me to uncover its secrets. I had to be brave, to confront the shadows that loomed over my family. And with each passing hour, I felt the weight of the pact pressing down on me, an unwelcome reminder that my pursuit of the truth could lead me to places I might not return from. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the sound of rain pounding against the leaves as I stepped cautiously into the woods. My heart raced with a mix of dread and anticipation. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. But the vision of Ethan, that fleeting glimpse during the storm, had ignited a fire within me that I couldn't ignore. I needed answers, and this was where my dream had led me. As I ventured deeper into the woods, the canopy above thickened, blocking out much of the dim light. Shadows danced ominously, and the whispers I had thought were just figments of my imagination grew louder, more distinct. Lucy, Lucy. They seemed to echo from every direction, wrapping around me like a chilling embrace. I stopped in a small clearing, my breath hitching at the sight before me. Strange symbols adorned the trees, etched into the bark with an almost unnatural precision. They glowed faintly, pulsing as if alive, and I could feel the energy radiating from them. I stepped closer, tracing the lines with my fingers. "What is this?" I murmured to myself, feeling a strange pull, as if the markings were calling me to uncover their secrets. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. My heart skipped a beat as I turned to see a shadowy figure standing just beyond the clearing. It was indistinct, but I could swear it resembled Ethan. "Ethan!" I shouted, my voice trembling with desperation. I rushed forward, my feet crunching on the twigs and leaves beneath me. But as I reached out, the figure dissolved into the air, leaving nothing but a lingering chill in its wake. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest, confusion and fear swirling within me. "No! Come back!" I cried out, feeling disoriented. The woods around me began to spin, and I clutched a nearby tree for support. my mind racing with the implications of what I'd just seen. Had it been a figment of my imagination or something more? Just then, a rustle in the underbrush pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to see a small rabbit darting away, its white tail flashing in the muted light. I let out a shaky breath and shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I had to confront whatever dark history my family was entangled in. Back in my apartment, I paced the floor, my mind racing. The symbols, the vision of Ethan, everything felt intertwined. I needed to return to Marissa, to learn more about the history that linked my family to this darkness. I grabbed my jacket and headed out again, determination fueling my steps. When I arrived at Marissa's quaint little house, the familiar scent of old books and incense greeted me. She opened the door, surprise flickering across her features. "Lucy, what brings you here at this hour?" Her brows knitted together, and I could sense her unease. "I need to talk about the symbols in the woods," I insisted, stepping inside. "I saw something, Marissa. I saw Ethan." Her expression shifted, a shadow crossing her face. "You shouldn't have gone there alone. The woods hold power, and not all of it is good." "I don't care about the dangers. I need to know what those symbols mean. Why were they there? What do they have to do with our family?" I demanded, frustration bubbling to the surface. Marissa hesitated, her gaze drifting as if she could see the past unfold before her. "Those symbols, they're tied to an ancient pact made by your ancestors, a deal struck with a dark entity to protect the family from a curse." "A curse?" I echoed, my heart racing. "What kind of curse?" "The kind that demands a sacrifice," she whispered, her eyes locking onto mine. "Every generation, one of your family must pay the price to keep the darkness at bay. Lucy, you need to be careful. Those who seek the truth often pay dearly for it." I felt a chill run down my spine. The weight of her words pressed heavily on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was entangled in something far greater than I had ever imagined. "I have to know more," I insisted, my resolve hardening. "I can't let this continue. I need to find Ethan." Marissa's expression turned grave. "You might not like what you uncover. Sometimes the truth is more terrifying than the unknown." But I was already too far gone, my heart set on unraveling the mystery. I couldn't turn back now. The storm was raging outside, but it paled in comparison to the tempest brewing within me. As I stepped into the small, dimly lit office of the local historian, the air felt thick with dust and secrets. Shelves crammed with ancient tomes lined the walls, and the smell of musty paper hung heavily in the room. I approached the desk, where a middle-aged man, his glasses perched precariously on the tip of his nose, peered up from a stack of faded records. "Lucy, right?" he asked, his voice gravelly yet welcoming. "What brings you here today?" "I need to know about my family's past," I replied, my heart racing. "More than just the basics. I've been digging into some dark stuff. My brother Ethan's disappearance, our family's history. I think there's a connection." He nodded, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "You're aware of the pact your ancestors made, aren't you?" I inhaled sharply. "Yes, I've heard whispers. I need to know everything." He gestured for me to sit, and as I settled into the creaky chair, he began rummaging through the piles of paper. "There's a story about a family member who went missing after they tried to break the pact. It's not a happy tale, I warn you." "I can handle it," I said, though my voice wavered slightly. The storm outside raged on, the thunder rumbling like a warning. He produced an old ledger, its cover worn and fragile. "This belonged to your great-grandfather. Here, look." He turned it to face me, revealing the scrawled entries that chronicled our lineage, each name marked with a date, some with ominous notes beside them. As I read through the records, a chill crept up my spine. This can't be right. It says here that my great-granduncle Gregory vanished after he tried to defy the agreement. They say he was never seen again. Many believed he was taken as a consequence for breaking the pact. "Your family has been trapped in this cycle for generations, Lucy," he explained, his tone grave. "The entity demands a sacrifice every generation to maintain its hold. You're not just a bystander in this tale. You could be next." Each word felt like a stone sinking in my heart. Next? But why? I didn't ask for this. None of us did. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze piercing. "That's what makes it so tragic. The pact binds you, whether you like it or not. You need to be cautious. knowledge can be a double-edged sword, especially when it comes to your family's secrets. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. How do I stop it? How do I break free? He shook his head, a look of sympathy crossing his face. It's not that simple. There are forces at play that you may not understand. Confronting the truth may lead to consequences you're not prepared for. The weight of his words settled heavily on my shoulders. My pulse quickened as I thought about Ethan, about what I had seen in the storm. I have to try, I insisted, my voice stronger than I felt. He deserves to be freed from whatever darkness has taken him. After a long pause, the historian sighed. You have the spirit of your ancestors in you, that's for sure. Just be careful, Lucy. Tread lightly. I left his office with a newfound determination, the storm still howling outside, echoing the turmoil within me. I returned home, my mind racing with thoughts of Ethan and the dark legacy of our family. I could feel the weight of the past pressing down on me, urging me to take action. That night, as I lay in bed, sleep eluded me. My mind replayed the historian's words, the chilling history of my family. I felt trapped in a cycle I didn't ask for, knowing that the threads of fate were woven with darkness. Was I destined to follow in the footsteps of those who came before me? Suddenly, a sharp knock resounded through the stillness of my home, startling me from my thoughts. My heart raced as I crept down the hallway, the sound echoing in the silence. Was it the storm playing tricks on my mind, or was something more sinister at play? I opened the door cautiously, and there it was, a small, old box perched on my doorstep. It looked worn, almost as if it had been waiting for me. My hands trembled as I lifted it, an unsettling feeling gnawing at my gut. Inside I found letters, their edges yellowed with age, all addressed to me. As I unfolded the first letter, my breath caught in my throat. It was from Ethan. Words poured out, desperate and filled with urgency. He spoke of his attempts to break the curse, of the dark entity that loomed over our family. Each line felt like a lifeline, yet the last words chilled me to the bone. Do not trust anyone, not even those closest to you. My heart raced as I read the final note, the implications sinking in. Who could I trust? The storm outside raged on, but it was nothing compared to the tempest brewing within me. The truth was out there, and I was determined to find it, no matter the cost. Rain pounded against the window, each droplet a reminder of the storm brewing outside, a storm that felt eerily reflective of the turmoil inside me. My heart raced as I paced the dimly lit room, the shadows seeming to dance with the flickers of lightning. The haunting image of Ethan's face flashed in my mind, and I felt a gnawing suspicion that the answers I sought were closer than I dared to admit. I needed to confront Marissa. I glanced at the clock. It was late, but the storm had a way of erasing boundaries. I grabbed my coat, the fabric feeling heavy with dread, and made my way to Marissa's house. Each step felt like a march toward a reckoning, the wind howling as if trying to warn me against it. When I arrived, the door creaked open at my knock, revealing Marissa, her face pale, eyes wide with surprise. Lucy, what are you doing here in this weather? I need to talk to you, I said, the urgency in my voice sharper than I intended. It's about Ethan. It's about the pact. Her expression shifted, a flicker of something unnameable passing through her eyes. She stepped aside, allowing me to enter. The warmth of her home was a stark contrast to the tempest outside, but I felt chilled to the bone. Sit down, she said, her voice steady but laced with concern. I perched on the edge of the couch, unable to shake the feeling that the air between us was thick with unspoken truths. You know more than you're telling me, don't you? I can feel it. What really happened to Ethan? Marissa hesitated, her gaze drifting to the window where the storm raged. Lucy, some truths are better left buried. The past is a dangerous place. Dangerous? I echoed, my frustration boiling over. What could be more dangerous than losing my brother? I deserve to know. Very well, she said finally, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world had settled upon them. Ethan was taken to fulfill the pact. My heart sank, the words piercing through me like shards of glass. What do you mean? Taken? By whom? By the entity that our ancestors made the deal with, Marissa confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm a descendant of the family that struck that deal, and I've been tasked with ensuring its continuation. Continuation? I shot back, disbelief flooding my system. How can you be part of this? Why would you let it happen?" Tears brimmed in her eyes, and she looked away. Guilt etched across her face. "It's complicated, Lucy. The pact was made to protect us, to keep the curse at bay. But every generation, a sacrifice must be made, and it was Ethan's turn." "Ethan was just a child," I cried, the anger bubbling over. "You knew he was taken, and you did nothing?" "I had no choice," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "If I had tried to intervene, the entity would have turned its wrath on us all. I thought it would be better to let him go, to keep the rest of the family safe." The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in as betrayal washed over me. "You think this is better? Do you realize what you've done?" "I did what I thought was right," she said, her voice trembling now. "But perhaps it was wrong. I see that now. You have to understand, we're caught in a cycle that's been going on for centuries." I stood abruptly, the weight of her confession pressing down on me like lead. "I won't let this continue. I won't let Ethan's sacrifice mean nothing. I'm going to confront the entity myself." Marissa grabbed my arm, desperation in her eyes. "Lucy, you don't know what you're dealing with. The entity is powerful, and once you step into its realm, there's no turning back." "I have to try," I said fiercely, shaking off her grip. "I have to save him." With that, I turned and stormed out of her house, the wind whipping around me as I stepped into the chaos of the storm. The atmosphere crackled with energy, the fury of the elements mirroring the tempest within my heart. I would gather everything I needed to confront the entity. My great-grandmother's journal, the letters from Ethan, and any remnants of our family's past that might aid me. I would end this cycle, no matter the cost. The darkness that had haunted my family for generations would no longer dictate our lives. I felt a surge of determination as I made my way home, knowing that this was only the beginning of a battle that would redefine everything I believed about loyalty, sacrifice, and love. The storm raged around me as I stepped into the woods, the air thick with tension and the scent of rain-soaked earth. Lightning illuminated the twisted branches overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced like specters. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the urgency of my mission. I clutched my great-grandmother's journal tightly, its pages worn and filled with the desperate words of a woman who had faced the same darkness I now confronted. "Here goes nothing," I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the howling wind. I found the clearing, the same place from my dream, where the symbols carved into the trees seemed to pulse with a life of their own. My breath quickened as I recalled the incantation I had memorized. I knelt on the damp ground, feeling the cool earth beneath me and the weight of my family's legacy pressing down. With trembling hands, I opened the journal, my eyes scanning the words. "By the blood of the cursed and the tears of the lost, I summon thee," I began to chant, my voice growing stronger with each phrase. The wind picked up, swirling around me, and I could feel the energy in the air shifting, coiling like a snake ready to strike. "I call upon the entity that binds my bloodline. Hear my plea." As the final words left my lips, the atmosphere thickened, and the shadows coalesced into a swirling mass of darkness before me. The entity emerged, a grotesque silhouette that writhed and twisted, its form barely discernible through the haze. An otherworldly voice echoed from the darkness, resonating deep within my bones. "You seek to release the one you love," it intoned, the words dripping with malice. "But to do so, you must take his place. The cycle must continue." My stomach dropped at the implication. "No, there must be another way," I protested, shaking my head violently. I refused to be a pawn in this twisted game. "Your refusal is irrelevant," the entity hissed, darkness swirling around it like a living cloak. "The pact demands a sacrifice, and the time has come. Your brother's freedom is yours to barter." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. "Ethan," I called out, hoping against hope that he could hear me. The winds howled louder, and then amidst the chaos I heard a voice, a familiar, comforting sound that sliced through the storm. "Lucy, don't give in." Ethan's voice rang clear, echoing in my mind like a beacon. "You have to fight it." "Ethan," I cried, tears streaming down my face. "I won't let you go. I refuse to be part of this." Suddenly, clarity struck me like a lightning bolt. Marissa had known all along. She had kept the pact alive, ensnaring Ethan to maintain the cycle. "Marissa," I shouted, my voice rising above the wind. "You did this. You trapped him." The entity laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine. She is merely a steward of the pact. You cannot change the past, child. No, I screamed defiantly, my heart racing as I remembered the letters from Ethan, his warnings echoing in my mind. I glanced at the journal clutched in my hands, the very book that had tied my family to this horror for generations. An idea sparked within me, fierce and unyielding. In an act of rebellion, I hurled the journal into the swirling mass of darkness. You will not take me. You will not have my family any longer. The pages fluttered in the wind, scattering like fallen leaves, igniting the air with a blinding light. The entity shrieked, its form convulsing as the light from the journal consumed it. No, you cannot break the pact, it howled, its voice twisting into a cacophony of rage and despair. I already have, I shouted, feeling a surge of power coursing through me. The darkness began to dissipate, unraveling like a frayed thread. I could see Ethan's spirit emerging from the shadows, his features clear and radiant. Lucy, he whispered, his voice filled with relief. You did it. As the storm began to quiet, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Marissa's silhouette flickered at the edge of the clearing, her expression a mix of horror and disbelief. What have you done? She gasped, the realization dawning on her. I ended it, I replied, my voice steady despite the tempest that had just raged. I broke the cycle. With that, the last remnants of the entity disintegrated into the night, leaving only silence in its wake. Marissa, realizing the gravity of her actions, turned and fled into the shadows, her fate sealed by her own dark legacy. I stood there, breathless, surrounded by the remnants of a storm that had become a battleground for my family's freedom. Ethan's spirit drew closer, the warmth of his presence washing over me. Thank you, Lucy. You saved me, he said, his voice a gentle caress. I'll always save you, I promised, tears of joy mingling with the rain on my cheeks. We're free now. And in that moment, as the storm clouds parted and the first rays of dawn broke through the darkness, I knew I had not only saved Ethan, but had also freed myself from the shadow of a cursed legacy. The past was behind me, and a new chapter awaited.